Religion has many victims, and these are the stories of how they survived. Welcome back to the Awakening Podcast, where we hold space for the stories of faith, freedom, and the long road home after religious trauma. I'm your host, Heather Foy.
And I'm your co-host, Tamara Buchanan. Every week, we sit down with survivors who have walked away from high-controlled religious spaces, and we are reclaiming their lives, their voices, and their sense of self.
Today's episode is one that really hits deep. We're talking with a woman who escaped the Independent Fundamental Baptist Movement, better known as the IFB. It's a world that's often hidden behind closed doors, cloaked in piety and perfection. But beneath it all, many have endured isolation, manipulation, and spiritual abuse.
Her story is raw, it's real, and it's incredibly powerful. She takes us inside the IFB culture, what it took to finally get out, and how she's rebuilding her life rooted in freedom and authenticity.
Before we begin today's episode, I want to take a moment to acknowledge something important. When we talk about trauma, we're not just telling stories from the past. We're talking about what our nervous systems have carried. Trauma doesn't always show up in words. Sometimes it shows up as a racing heart, a lump in the throat, or a moment where language simply fails us. Our bodies remember what our minds can't always explain. Today, our guest is sharing their story publicly for the first time. That takes immense courage. And it's important to remember that putting words to something our nervous system has held in silence isn't easy. It's sacred work. So as you listen today, I invite you to do so with compassion for our guest and for yourself. If you notice your body responding, take a breath. Pause if you need to, and come back when you're ready. This space is for healing, not performance. It's about reclaiming our voice, safety, and connection, one story at a time.
Let's dive in.
Welcome back, y'all, to The Awakening. We are so excited to have every single one of you here, and we are really excited to have our special guest with us today. Her name is Shay, and I'm going to introduce her now. Welcome in, Shay.
Oh, thank you.
So good to have you here with us today.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So you grew up in the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church, and could you tell our listeners a little bit about what that looked like for you growing up and what your religious structure looked like? Because, you know, we all come from various backgrounds. We all know that certain churches do certain things and some cults do other things. So just kind of give us a little background of where it is that you came from.
So I came from a single parent home. The IFB found me when I was 16. So it was after I was raped. I'm sorry, TikTok words. After I was raped.
Yeah, you're fine.
That I was, in the IFB church. So that's kind of where it all started. From the single parent where my mom was working all the time to not having anyone, growing up to after getting raped. I wanted to use that word again, but after getting raped, my mother not really wanting to deal with it. So it was just like, here, go to church, you can find God. So
yeah,
when you're 16 years old, yeah, you need that help.
So that was basically your mother's prescription for what it is that happened to you is this is how we're going to deal with it. We're going to put you in the church. Yeah. That's going to help you heal from that trauma.
Yeah.
Wow. And what did that religious structure look like?
So what it looked like originally was because my aunt was, I can't think of the word right now, but she had taken me to a lady. A lady had said, "Oh, God speaks through me, blah, blah, blah." So what it looked like was
a prophet.
Yeah, like a prophet. So it looked like from going to public school because I was in public school my freshman year, to because the guy who raped me was a gang leader. And it went from, hey, oh, don't worry, we'll take care of you, we'll this, we'll that, to, okay, because I wasn't going to stop. Like, it wasn't my choice at 16 to press charges. It was the state's.
Yeah.
And so because it was going on and it was going more through, then it was, the gifts started coming. Oh, here's a necklace. Here's this. Here's that. So the church, with the church coming in, the person who had been over my care, I guess you can say, in the church was my pastor. But then I got assigned a lady to me who, she was about probably in her 20s at that time, to, I guess I don't like the word grooming, but when I think about it, that's basically what they do. They groom you. I hate that word, but they groom you into how to act, how to be. I remember when I would say something, mind you, because I was 16. And so, back then, the 16-year-olds, they said a lot of stuff. So I said something, and she's like, no, that's inappropriate. You have to, you can't say that because God wouldn't want you to say it.
Yes.
So it started even at that time. It started when I went to church there. Oh, you got saved. Getting saved. Them writing in my Bible, God has a special plan for you and everything. So it started with that.
And what did they tell you, when they would say that God has a special plan for you, what did they tell you that plan looked like?
It was a plan that I would always need to follow him, dedicate my life to him. The next thing I needed to do was to get baptized. Like, these are the steps I had to take. I eventually did go to that IFB high school at the church. That looked like our uniforms were basically like from the Blockbuster when Blockbuster was open. The tan and the blue. Yeah.
Yeah.
We could have short sleeves, but it couldn't be all the way up short. It had to be like, I guess you can say mid or top, whatever.
Yeah.
So, and our skirts, it had to be down to the ankles. Really couldn't have anything past the knees. Really couldn't have physical contact with boys, or like had to make sure we were far enough, like no accidental brush up or whatever. Yeah. So it was, we had chapel every morning. Our classes consist of the Bible. So in college, we didn't have English comp, but in high school we had English comp. So in high school we had to have some of the basics outside of a church school. So, which was, it was okay, and I didn't think about it then. But so I have a learning disability. And so that learning disability was never really acknowledged. Like I would have the classes, the teachers to help me, but it was never really acknowledged.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know that I had ADHD until I was in my late 30s because I didn't know. Like I had no idea, you know? And my parents would always say, oh, that people don't have ADHD. They're just hyperactive kids. They just need to play more outside or whatever, you know, because they did not believe in stuff like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy when I hear about other people's stories and it's the same thing, you know, those things aren't even acknowledged, let alone are you taken care of and catered to what it is that your needs would be around having that, you
Oh
know?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Shannon, how did the church approach you? Did you open up to them and tell them what had happened? And what was their guidelines for repentance, forgiveness? What was the thought
So
process around what had happened to you?
so the process around with the fact that I was raped was, and I kind of talked about this last night a little bit. So I could never be a pastor's wife, like, because I wasn't. And it's not the fact that they came up out and said, oh, because you were raped you can never be a pastor's wife.
Yeah.
It's how they treat you, how they encourage you to in the other areas instead of, so
Ministry.
yeah, ministry.
Yes.
So I, while in it, my ministry was the best ministry. My ministry was to the people that were like me, the children that were like me.
Yeah.
So, single family homes, basically living in poverty, low income, as they would say, no hope. But they would give me hope. So, yeah. So, I mean, I could be like a a music pastor's wife. I could be a missionary's wife. I just couldn't be a pastor's wife. I was not top enough to be a pastor.
You weren't pure enough for that role.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's what's so sad. That is so messed up that even in that environment, they're re-victimizing you basically and using what happened to you against you. That is so messed up. So what did it look like? Like, how did you go from being, involved in this and fully part of this to starting to wake up to, this is not where I want to be anymore?
Well, for so long, even because I even went to the college, I went to the IFB college. I was told my role was to be a missionary's wife. I was told my role was to go to ambassador. This is what it was. So while even doing that and even being involved in the purity culture as an adult, a young adult, being told how to dress, I had to follow Proverbs 31. Never questioned it. It just, then when it came to there, I ended up leaving the college, and I ended up leaving because I wasn't good. I wasn't good enough because I talked to someone who wasn't a Christian. I talked to someone who wasn't whatever. No offense taken, but I must have been a Jezebel. That's how I was,
Yeah. 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 Well, those thoughts, those ideas that they put inside of us, they run deep, right? Mm-hmm. So we identify with those labels that they give us. When they say that, we're a Jezebel for having critical thinking or independent thought, we internalize that. We internalize that harm and that shame and all of that. So that's not surprising that you were viewing yourself in that type of light.
Well, the issue is because of that and because of the college, I viewed myself until, well into my 20s, I deconstructed, because I didn't think I was good enough, because I didn't finish Bible college, because I didn't marry that missionary, and I was given one. I was given a missionary's kid, but because I had left the college, I wasn't good enough. with the deconstructing, when I started deconstructing in my late 30s, I think I was just sick and tired. I needed an answer. I needed an answer to really who God was. I was confused because I would hear things like spirits. I would see stuff, and I thought I was going crazy. And I was like, no, okay, no, I'm not going crazy. So that's kind of what started on my journey, trying to figure out who I really was. I started questioning. I saw stuff in the Bible. I saw the spiritual gifts in the Bible, and it talked about the gift of prophecy, the gift of being like basically an empath and stuff. And I was like, how can you tell a person they're wrong for these gifts when it's in the Bible? So that's when I started, and I started leaving the IFB church because I was like, this isn't right. I didn't realize a lot of this stuff because, again, not a lot of people are talking about the IFB. Not a lot of people are even coming to the realization that the IFB is a cult. And so that's the problem. I started realizing it. I'm like, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to talk about. People are not going to like me, but it was wrong. They made me dress a certain way, and they say, how can they make you dress a certain way? Well, when they're in your head so much and they tell you you're not worth anything, make you feel like you're not worth anything.
And I'm beginning to think that we need to have a little sound that we need to play to you whenever somebody talks about self-worth, because every episode we have done so far, self-worth has come up. It is the one thing that we struggle with the most when we leave high control religion, because when you're in that environment, they literally constantly do nothing but beat you down on a regular basis. My husband and I were even talking about it this morning. It's like, oh, let's go to church to get our weekly beating from the Lord, right? Because it's in the worship music, it's in the sermons, like it's all enmeshed. So how are you supposed to truly love yourself or view yourself as a good person when you're being constantly fed these messages about how worthless you are, and how nothing you can do will ever be good, it's crazy.
And you always feel just a little dirty.
Yes.
You always feel, no matter what you put on, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, once you get to the point that you realize that you're a tainted woman, there is almost no way inside the four walls of a church for you not to constantly have that feeling in the back of your head that you would be good enough if you weren't dirty.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing is I was an adult and I was still feeling constantly dirty or constantly wrong because, my kids, I didn't homeschool my kids because my kids were in public school.
Yep. I felt so much shame around that. I was a young mom with 4 children, and I remember feeling like I was failing my children because I could not homeschool them, because that's what a good Christian parent was supposed to do. They were supposed to protect them from the evils of the world around them. But I was a young mom, like I was seriously early 20s, and I have 4 kids. I can't stay home with all of them. I would have went crazy. I just wasn't capable of that.
But then the women of the church who were doing those things, right?
They make you feel bad. They do. Exactly. They make you feel ashamed.
They walk around with this sense of entitlement inside the church houses, and you know what level or what clique you don't belong to. Let me tell you, if you do something opposite of what the head women of the church are doing, or those that are like pointed out as special, because every one of us know exactly and can name the names of the individuals in our church that were our age, each of us. They were the special ones.
Yep.
Absolutely.
They were the ministers. They were in charge of all women's ministry. They, there were collectively, and those women went to the younger women to find women to train to become them.
And if you were not as perfect as they put themselves out there to be, they wouldn't even waste their time on you. Because I was the one that they wouldn't waste their time on. So I was a lot like you. I was able to do certain things in the church, but there were other things that I would never be allowed to do. And it's crazy because it's nothing of me. It has everything to do with them, right? And their perception of you. It's the Mean Girls Club.
It is. It is a Mean Girls Club, but it's like, so because I had my first two kids, and then I had my older kids when I was in the church, they would make it such a thing to come up and visit me when I was in the hospital, when I had already given birth. Like we were best friends. Oh my goodness, hi, how are you? Like, oh, the baby, and the whole thing throughout being a woman and having children in the church and giving birth to children, your children had to have the names in the Bible. They had to have biblical names. That was another thing. I didn't give my children biblical names. I was like, no. So
I know I have a Matthew, Elijah, and an Isaiah, if that tells you anything.
Yeah.
And I have a Bethany, a Benaniah, and a Caleb.
We know all about the biblical
and I come from a family of Tamara, Timothy, Tobias, Thomas, and Tira.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It's crazy because they put this picture, they paint this picture like it's so perfect. Really the harm of it is, even when deconstructing, because you don't know who you are anymore, you see the lie, you feel like you can't believe in anything else. Like you can't believe in a God anymore.
Your entire worldview is ripped out from underneath of you. And I love comparing it to the end of the Truman Show, because that's exactly what it is. It's like waking up and realizing everything that you've known about your life and the world around you is a complete lie. And then you are left with the rubble of all these lies. And you've got to sort through that rubble and all those bricks and figure out which ones are worth keeping and using to rebuild your foundation and which ones you have to toss off to the side, Yeah. And it's devastating. It's devastating to be in that. That's what frustrates me when people say just deconstruct. No, I walk away and have my entire earth shattered in such a devastating way to sin more. I would just sin. I would just stay in the church and continue to sin. Like that would have been so much easier than to deconstruct. People don't ask for this.
Yeah, no, people don't ask.
But it's so important for us to always remember that no matter how hard the journey is, when we look back on what we were given for a foundation, that wasn't a foundation that I would have ever picked for to build a life on, because it was so full of falsehoods and fairy tales and myths and signs and wonders. There's nothing that was solid, concrete, evidence-based or evidence-guided for me to ever rebuild with those bricks that I threw away.
Yeah.
And then how do you make new
that's
bricks?
And that's really, that some people, when they deconstruct, that's exactly where they land. There's nothing left out of that to rebuild with, because what am I going to sort through? Like, it's lies, right? So, do I want to pick up that lie and use it to rebuild? Like, so it makes sense that not everybody does. And, I think that's why it's so important for us to have these conversations. We talk about this every week, but everybody's process looks different. Some people deconstruct and they walk completely away from faith or belief in anything. And then there are other people that find their own spiritual path and a new path with a different type of meaning. So I want to talk about that a little bit because I know that you have deconstructed out of the IFB. But
Yes.
what does your relationship with faith look like now?
I you know what? Before I would sit there and I would say, "Oh, I have no faith. I have no faith." I just, I don't know. It was like I have no faith because faith was an ugly word. Faith was a word that Christians used. But what I would say my faith looks like now is, so I'm an eclectic, Christian. I believe in all the gods, and I've come to the conclusion of, I can't say that the Abrahamic God doesn't exist or that doesn't exist, but still believe in my gods. So I believe in all the gods because what comes up the most is the Psalms 82:1, where God says he sits on the council with other gods.
Yes.
And I keep thinking about that, and I'm like, okay, I believe in a higher power. And I choose to worship a higher power. To me, that higher power looks like my gods. Being an eclectic pagan, I have a Norse god and I have a Greek god. To me, there's not enough you can know about the Abrahamic God except with what the Bible says. And I'm like, I don't want to know that God.
Yeah. There's more to God than what's in that Bible.
Yeah.
That's what I love to tell people is if all you know about God is what's in the Bible, then you are missing out on so much more that there is out there to offer. Like, I'm just saying.
And that's the thing. That's why, because believing in a higher power, I know there's much more. And, you know, I was having this conversation with someone the other day, and I was like, a higher power. If it's God, this God, you guys are so wrong about the Christian God because you guys are doing it wrong. You guys are angry. You guys are this. You guys are that. And I was like, if anything from your Bible comes, I said, because I take this and I look at it as all religion, as what every religion, what every denomination says is to love one another, to treat others with kindness, and to not judge. I said, that's the one truth I can take away. And I feel that is true for all because all the denominations say this. I'm like, but we're not doing it.
No.
I said, Christianity is not what Christianity is. And then I hear other Christians come up and say, well, that person's not a true Christian, and this person's not a true Christian. And I'm like, you have to stop.
Yeah.
And regardless of what we call ourselves. I'm an eclectic pagan, whether you call yourself a Christian or not, or whether you call yourself, some people practice Norse, some people practice Egyptian, some people practice the Celtic side.
Yeah, so, I'm a Celtic Christian, so yep, that's me.
So I was like, you have to stop judging because, to be honest, and I don't say this in an arrogance of we know everything, but I would say those who follow pagan traditions like Romans, Greek, Celtic, Egyptian, on top of a lot of people who are atheists, who truly practice what it truly means to love and whatever, those are the people who are going to be in heaven.
Oh, yeah.
If a heaven exists. And heaven looks so different. My ideal of heaven may be different from your ideal of heaven.
Yep.
So, and then we don't know. So
exactly. And we have to be honest about not knowing, you know. That's one thing that Christianity gave us. It gave us this certainty that we had all the answers. We knew exactly how everything was going to go down. But the reality is we don't have any of the answers. We don't know. And we have to be honest about that because we are so what's to come in the next life. We don't focus on what needs to be done in this one to help people in need or to help ourselves, you know? So we really need to stay focused and rooted in what's right in front of us instead of what we think is coming, you know?
That was something in the IFB that they really taught us and they ingrained into us is if you don't know, you don't know. God's going to take care of it and don't worry about it. Like, so
Yeah.
perfect example. I went to go take my test. So for my national, and I couldn't get it out. I couldn't take my test Friday because I couldn't get it through my laptop. Well, I spent all night and I figured it out. And I figured out I had to put my email through my laptop to do it.
Yeah.
Now, instead of them giving the instructions of this is, you have to go to this link and that link, I had to figure it out. So I say this as an example because when I was in IFB, it was, this is what it says, and just whatever. And so if I was still in that thinking, I would have been like, okay, I'm just going to give it to God and hope it works out the next time. And then if it didn't, the same through. Now being an eclectic pagan, I was like, okay, it didn't work this time. What do I need to do? Like, how do I figure this out? Being outside of the IFB, I can think for myself. And I don't have to feel ashamed of it. I don't have to call upon a God. And even being an eclectic pagan, my deities don't say, here, worship me. They say, hey, we're here if you need us. So
I love that. I love that because it's instead of it being, you know, all about them, they're coming alongside of you in partnership. And that is so beautiful because that shows, you know, we're in this together. Unity. That is so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, that's one thing. And Christianity has taken the word pagan and has turned it
and
around.
they've soiled it.
Yeah. So, if anything, that would be my hope for people listening. And you know, I tell people I don't try to change, I don't try to whatever, but is when you hear pagan, don't think, oh my gosh, they're evil, they're making sacrifices, they're doing this, they're doing that. Because not every pagan practice is different. So my practice, I don't put anything as a sacrifice. That's not me. I have my rituals, I have my traditions, just like any religion would have their traditions. Again, I don't have to worry about my gods whether or not I'm pleasing them. I know that sounds kind of dirty in a way, but in the IFB, I always had to please my God. I always had to say, okay, God, is it enough? Oh, wait a minute. Am I dressed? Well, wait a minute. I don't want to go out in these sweatpants. Let me put on a skirt. You know, let me put on leggings underneath and put a skirt on when it's winter out and it's like 2 inches or 3 inches of snow on the ground. It's absolutely ridiculous.
But we did it.
Yes.
We did it without question. We did it when we were freezing. We were making sure that even if we were cold, that it didn't matter. I remember going to Prince Edward Island, Canada, and going skiing for my first time in a jean skirt that was all the way to my ankles. And we're talking about Canada. Wow. We were snowed into a house, a resort there, that the snow was all the way up to the second floor. And we still put on a dress with no leggings underneath. For us, we were only allowed to put on pantyhose, right? Because leggings pertaineth to a man. But when you look back on it and you realize that that is this extent, that is where they go with making sure that women, you know, honestly, there was no way that was even okay. That was even abusive. The weather was too cold, and your little babies had to dress the same way. So all your little girls had dresses on. Never were they allowed to wear a snowsuit because that was pertaineth to a man. It didn't matter if you were trying to keep them warm. It didn't matter the reasons why. It was a matter of your devout obedience. Period.
Yep.
That is insane. That is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we did it. We did it without question. We did it when we woke up in the morning. It was just like the air that we breathed, walking out of our home. We must meet a level of perfection because we're not sure who we are going to see. And we must always be a representative of what we are a part of.
Godliness and holiness. That's what you're supposed to be representative of when you leave the house.
Well, it got to even the point, even not just leaving the house, for the IFB, and as women, and what was taught was even we had to be modest in our homes. So we could wear culottes to bed. We could wear a long gown to bed, but never any shorts, never any pants, and our kids, and when it came to our husbands, there was no such thing as pleasure. It wasn't for pleasure. It was to produce kids. So,
wow.
And the women were never allowed to initiate.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That came from the men. Yeah.
So I couldn't go to my husband at the time and be like, hey, I want, I'm feeling a little.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. It was, oh, okay, let's try for a kid. Let's try for a baby. It was like, that was like the whole thing. That was like,
no, thank you. That's not any fun.
But I'm saying that's a turn on point.
And how does that affect you today? Because a lot of times we don't talk about the sexuality part of the deconstruction or the amount of indoctrination that women receive. And when those of us from high controlled religions step away, sexuality becomes an issue.
It makes me insecure. So what it did to me was, when I started leaving Christianity, this is how bad it was. Like, I would look at myself and I didn't like myself. I didn't like how I looked without clothes. So I kind of went crazy, but I went and I started getting tattoos because I was like, I need to change myself. I need to put my story on my body. I need to put the pictures on my body to make it me, to make it feel like this is something I want. I don't want to be 60, 70 years old being like, oh man, I wish I had a tattoo. You know? Now I have 22, but that's how bad it was. It was, I couldn't even really look at myself and see anything good. And now, I know that sounds crazy, but
how did you feel about your first tattoo? Because we are indoctrinated that putting ink on our body basically makes us another step away from ever being able to be saved and sanctified, filled with the Spirit, and going to heaven, right? But so that first tattoo, what was those inner thoughts as you were getting them? I loved everything about it.
I was like, yep. I was like, I don't have to. Okay, if this is all that it takes to get away from this God, then I'm going to put you. I'm going to put it everywhere.
She's like, ink me everywhere. Give me all the tattoos.
And if I can interject, I'm just saying that because I remember getting my first tattoo, right? And there was a certain point that there was a lot of pain involved, right? And I thought, that's what I get. I'm getting the devil's ink on me.
No,
of course, this is going to hurt.
I enjoyed the pain. The pain was therapy to me. Mm-hmm. And that sounds weird. I know some people may sound this and be like, "Oh my gosh, you're satanic, you're whatever because you like pain." No, it's the simple fact because in IFB, we weren't allowed to have any emotions. We weren't allowed anything. We weren't allowed to be angry because that was a sin. We weren't allowed to slightly say, "Hey, I wish I had that," or "I wish I had this," because that was jealousy. That was envy. We weren't supposed to feel that. So taking it and finally letting things out, because to be honest, and I've even told Tamara this, is up until a month ago, even with my deconstructing, I didn't allow myself to feel. And I didn't realize I wasn't healing. And when she had told me, "You have to allow you to heal. Do not," she said, "do not cut off those feelings." And so, okay, I didn't cut off those feelings. It hurt. My body went through anxiety. I felt like I was going to throw up. But in the end, it felt good. It felt like something.
I was very cut off from my emotions as well because I was taught for years to spiritually bypass everything, spiritually bypass it until it got to the point where you can't do that anymore, And she's right. You cannot heal unless you allow yourself to feel. But that's not easy because it is very painful.
And a lot of times, high-controlled religions, and I have said this often in the last several weeks, is that they tell us that we're not allowed to have all of these emotions, right? That women shouldn't be angry, they shouldn't be passionate, they shouldn't lift their voices too high, they shouldn't show any kind of emotion when it comes to things. We're blessed, we're highly favored of God, we're blessed coming in, we're blessed going out, we're blessed sitting down, we're blessed standing up. We are blessed. We are to speak blessings into our life, speak faith into our life, never speak anything negative into our lives. But what that winds up doing is that there are honest emotions. There's anger, there's frustration, there's disgust, there's dismissiveness. There is different emotions that we are not able as women to articulate the language that goes along with that emotion. I can feel things, but I can't tell you how I'm feeling. I can start crying. I can be overwhelmed. I can just fall apart. Those things were allowed to be a part of my life because those are usually done at the altar, praying in intercessory prayers with God, just between you and him. But then when you stood up and you wiped those tears away and you walked away from the altar, you left it at the altar.
The altar, yep.
It was something that you were not supposed to pick back up. And I realized that so many times that we are taught, don't feel, just believe. And there is no way that someone can heal, in my opinion, if you're not going to experience anger, hurt, shame, guilt, and allow those emotions to actually take on articulation and be able to speak those feelings to power in order to become vulnerable enough to be able to say, it's okay that I'm angry. I should be angry. This what just happened to me is totally fucked up. And this is okay. But you almost have to have someone give you permission, or for you to be strong enough to give yourself permission to say that this is also a form of indoctrination to the women, because it keeps us suppressed, it keeps us under oppression, and it keeps us not and submissive and meek and mild. It keeps us all of those things, but it doesn't allow us to find our voice and to speak the wrongs and make those right.
Well,
exactly.
Along with that, it's forgiveness too, because we're taught, and so in the IFB, was taught to forgive. We have to forgive. We have to do this. We have to do that because, the Bible says to forgive and to constantly forgive. So even after deconstructing and leaving the church, I was still practicing these, even though I didn't believe in the belief of the IFB anymore. I was still practicing them. I didn't realize I was practicing them. Perfect thing, EMS. I'm a volunteer. At a rescue squad volunteer, and I didn't fit into this clique. But these people would do things and would say things to me and hurt, and my feelings would get hurt. They would constantly do things, but I kept quiet because I was still practicing that as when I was in church. As okay, people are going to do this, people are going to do that. And so it wasn't until I started truly healing, I'm like, I don't care, because I knew everything that I needed to know as an EMT. Like I said, I just have to do my national, but I was asking permission when I would ride people. Oh, can I do this? Can I do that? And when I realized I was going back into that practice again when I was a Christian, going and facing and actually truly learning to heal and having that first time of emotions, I'm like, I'm not going to apologize anymore. I'm not going to say, hey, can I do this? Hey, can I do that? We're supposed to be a team.
You're allowed to take up space, you know, and that's one thing that they take from us is our ability to do that. They rob our voice, our presence, you know, and it's so incredible that you are taking that back for yourself. So you've left the IFB, you have deconstructed. What does life look for you now? And, you know, if you had any words of encouragement for the people that are listening to you today, what would you say to them?
I would tell them, take that first step. That first step may hurt. That first step may not feel good. You will get sick. You will physically get sick. You will physically have troubles with your GI system. But it's worth it. It's not about how long it takes. It's about getting to that path.
Yeah.
So a very, very, very good dear sister told me that. So,
and you know, and we have discussed on this show before, but healing is not linear, and deconstruction doesn't look the same for two different people. You know, we all experience deconstruction differently because we're all learning and growing at our own pace, right? So I may be unpacking one part of my trauma while this person over here is unpacking a totally different part of theirs. So, and we have to be mindful of those things as we're going through this journey because we are all learning and growing. But it's worth it. It's so worth it because at the long run, you become a better human being for yourself and for the people in community with you. Go ahead, T.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, and not only does it look different for each of us, right? Each of us take a different approach to that healing process. There may be times in my life that I feel that I can be vulnerable and lean into it. And then there'll be other times in my life that I'll pull back, and it could be within the same day. But that doesn't mean that I'm not healing. That just means that I'm understanding the process of what it takes to heal, that there's some things that are going to be really easy for me. Heaven or hell, God versus the devil, angels, slavery, those kind of things were really easy for me to say. I don't understand that, right? That doesn't make sense to me. But being able to say, okay, I can speak to a group without feeling scared. I can speak to people without being hesitant, without that anxiety. Those kind of things are issues that others may not be able to do as well at their point on the journey. But if we lean into it and we make sure that we understand that we are all here together, regardless of which way we have joined our journeys together, we all come from different ways and we have met, right? And then it's up to us to maintain that space for each other, to encourage as sisterhood and womanhood, and to promote the healings of another woman who's trying and who is doing it, but just needs somebody to know that they see them, that they hear them, that they're there.
I think we need to stop having anger. We need to stop having anger towards this, what we were taught. I think which we're allowed to have anger, but you can't heal with holding on to that anger. you have to realize that there's healing, and that
Yes.
it's not there. I don't know.
I think there is a space for righteous anger, which is being mad at the systems and the corruption. But I'm not mad at the people that are victims of the system and the corruption, because they're victims too, right? So, and if I am writing you off just like you write everybody else off in the world, then I'm no better than you, because I'm still not loving you like I should.
Yeah.
I'm not viewing you as a human being that is worthy of love, grace, compassion, empathy, mercy, all these things. So I think that's really important, that we don't fail to see the humanity in our neighbors, even if they are neighbors that hold these horrible beliefs, because they are just victims of the system. They are victims of the system.
And a lot of people say, oh, you deconstructed, but you reconstructed because you believe in a higher power. No, because I didn't go back to Christianity. I didn't go back to this just because I believe in a higher power doesn't mean I went back to Christianity. So I deconstructed from all of that, but I started having my faith, my belief. What do I believe?
You took it back for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is so powerful.
That's what we have to do. And I get so tired of it. I get tired of people. I get it all the time. Oh, well, then you're not doing what's right. You're not going to heaven. You're not going to this. And even when I come up with all the knowledge I have of the history of the Bible, of this, of that, because people are like, well, the Bible's historical. No, the Bible has history, but it's not really historical.
Exactly.
And they're like, well, but this, but that. I'm like, so as a woman, it's hard because I have men who come up who are just like, I don't believe it. I don't believe what you say. And then
they won't take us seriously at all. And that's the patriarchy. It is. It's just the patriarchy.
Yeah. Then a man comes up, says the exact same thing, will be like, my TikTok name, Dragons. Yes, Dragons is completely right. They're just like, and they explain it, then they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like,
well, I'm glad you mentioned your TikTok. So, Shay, you have several different social media links, and I am definitely going to leave those in the show notes so our listeners can find you if they want to listen to you or follow along with your journey. And I appreciate you so much for coming on to our show today, sitting down and talking with us. I know these things are not easy to talk about, but you are greatly appreciated. We come together once a week to share our stories, just all healing loudly together. And I couldn't do any of this without people like you. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It actually feels like maybe there was some point to having to being that. So
there always is, because it what people don't understand, it's collectively all of our stories that make the powerful story. It's not just one story or one voice, Shay. It's what each of us have gone on, what we've discovered, what we've learned about ourselves, and how we are rebuilding ourselves to live, and to stop feeling that need of only being able to live in survival mode, but to actually live out loud and to be happy and confident and be the women that we were meant to be before patriarchy was embedded and indoctrinated into us.
Most definitely. So
amen. That's a wonderful note to end on. So guys, listen, if you enjoyed this episode, we are so grateful that you were here with us again. And this is episode 6. It's crazy that we're already 6 episodes into this thing. So if you like the show, hit the like and the subscribe button, and catch us back here again next week for another episode of The Awakening. Thank you so much for being here today.
The preceding podcast is solely owned by its host or hosts and is distributed by BIG Media LLC. Copyright 2025, all rights reserved.